Let's go get some ice.
Over those kind of rocks.
You did?
Yeah, like a mango.
Like a mango?
Yeah, I hopped over like the mango.
Well, how's a mango hop?
Ice?
It's full. All right. Let's take this to the coolers. Right now, it's the morning prep. So the first thing we do is get some ice in all of our coolers, help soften the ice so it doesn't freeze the vegetables, and helps us keep everything as cold as we need it to be. This is gonna pack all of our veg that's going to market tomorrow. So everything that comes out of the garden today will get washed, and depending on its personal needs, it'll be cooled down or held at room temperature. Okay. Every morning we do this. We're in kind of a race against time with the lettuce. As the day warms up and the sun hits it, it starts sending things into the leaves that cause it to be bitter. So when we catch it first thing in the morning, all the sugars are in the leaves, its crispness is at its peak. It translates into much more palatable lettuce if we do it now and instead of at 10 a.m. So lettuce is always first on the list. We use a lot of ice. Is that loud? This is my 4-year-old boy, Shane. Can you say hi? He's a huge reason why we're farmers. We decided to do this about 4 months after he was born. We needed a better place to grow up. Let's get the bubbler going.
Why are you turning the bubble?
We gotta melt the ice a little bit, make sure it's working too. Shooting for like 40 degrees. 36 is about as cold as you would go. The whole purpose of the cold water is to help shock things. We're shooting for the sweetest tasting lettuce we can to help make sure that happens and to help preserve crispness. Going into the cold water, just it gets it to the temperature it needs to hold at for a long time. And it does it quickly. You standing back, watch out for the water. Should we go pick some lettuce before it runs away from us?
Why you need to pick some lettuce, then it can't walk away?
That was a joke. Boyd. Yeah, Grandpa is coming. Make sure nobody steps on that pipe right there. See that pipe right where tuna is? Tell them, watch out. So we're just taking the tops off of these heads because the plant will regenerate. And so we get usually 3 cuts off of this kind of lettuce. The first 2 being the best. The third is perfectly acceptable, but then usually by the 4th cut, it's getting bitter, it's getting kind of thistly. These are all 1-cut lettuce. So when you cut across it, you get universal salad-sized leaves. We attend the farmer's market on Saturday, and so for peak freshness, we harvest every Friday. These heads are way smaller than we normally harvest, but last few weeks of heat kind of saw to that. Lettuce likes much cooler temperatures than Phoenix summer has to offer.
Why do water?
It's dew, morning dew. It's just like Mountain Dew. I think they actually bottle it off of lettuce. Why'd I get rid of that? Because there's a caterpillar in there pooping. And we don't want to sell caterpillar poop. And we also don't want to spray chemicals to get rid of the caterpillars. The salad was a huge reason why we started the farm, because we realized we were pretty good at growing it. And it's really worthwhile. Like, the alternative to what we can go buy for salad just doesn't even come close to comparing to this. This stuff will stay fresh for 2 weeks from today. And along that way, it's the best tasting lettuce you'll ever get your hands on. It is all succession based. To give you a good idea, this was harvested last week. So you can see, like, this is what I would be cutting this week. It's just not ready. I imagine this bed will be ready to cut again in 2 weeks. So it's about 3 weeks from cut that you get to cut again. So next week's bed is over there. So week 1, week 2, week 3, back to week 1 again. And then we plant lettuce every week to make sure we don't run out. It pretty much grows itself. It doesn't need, it's not a heavy feeder, so we don't have to amend with, the manures like we do cucumbers. And essentially it's a weed. So as long as you give it the right amount of space and the right amount of water, it just thrives. Other than temperature. It doesn't like hot temperatures. So to get lettuce to market when it's still hot out, we put these hoops over, and we had shade. There was a big shade tent over this that enabled the conditions for these to grow. But fortunately, that season's gone. It's now nice out again. But it's our goal to have lettuce at every farmer's market until the end of June. This was all planted the first week of September, which is, we're about 40 days out now. Usually it's 30 days from the day we transplant it till harvest. Over the past 40 days, we had some pretty lousy weather. I start everything from seed, but these were transplanted. So I start these seeds in the house. I thought gardening was enough experience to come build a farm, and farming's way harder than gardening. I think gardening is truly a labor of love, and farming is just labor. But we still love doing it. It's the hardest thing I've ever worked at, and I can't imagine working harder at something else. But the payback on the other end, not just money, is so big. Between the food my family gets to eat, the 100+ people that buy food from us every week that just pour it on me, like their appreciation for what we're doing. 3.5 acres is the whole property, and right now the garden is between 1/4 and 1/2 acre. I think I'm at like 15,000 square feet of garden. If we were only harvesting lettuce, I'd be excited to tell you it's hundreds of pounds a week. But like this week, these cucumbers, there's gonna be 200 pounds of cucumbers that come off. It's a massive amount of food that gets produced on a small footprint. Hey, Dad. How's everybody doing? Right now, it's just gonna hold it. I got it in a place to where the lettuce can sit here for over an hour and I can go do other things. But the primary purpose of the tank, besides cooling it off, is to clean it. And so any debris that's on the lettuce gathers in the edges, and I'll be able to scoop that out instead of the lettuce. Also, our little friends, that's a cabbage looper. They float to the surface and I'm able to get them out of the product. With organic practices, what's worse, a caterpillar or poison? And so I tend to believe I'd rather have a caterpillar sharing some of my lettuce than glyphosate. But because now this is ready just to sit here for a while, I can go do something else. I'm gonna go cut some arugula. The most time-saving tool on the farm.
Let's see. Wow.
What is that?
It's arugula. This is already the 3rd cut on this, so
I got it.
I'm going to cover this bed up after today, because his radishes will be gone. This arugula will be gone, and then after it's covered for 10 days, it'll be ready to replant.
Right.
And this will be lettuce next. The makers of this promise it's a 900% efficiency increase, and I think it's an understatement. When I cut this by hand in the past, it would take me an hour to cut this bed. That's enough for today.
That's enough.
Yep, I'm gonna give this to the compost. All right.
Maybe longer.
Yeah, exactly. Shane, you want to get the eggs from the chickens? Today we just pulled 7 eggs from 20 chickens. We had a big catastrophe a week ago. A coyote got in here and killed half our chickens. So the remaining half are still in shock from that, and we're only getting a few.
As an independent team of filmmakers, we love producing documentaries for artisans of all trades, honoring skill, passion, and determination. So whether you're a garage baker, homegrown mycologist, backyard farmer, or off-grid homesteader, send us a message and share your story with the world.
It's gonna be nice enough today. Let's start filling totes out here. the ratio of like purple to green leaves is all done by how many of each seed we put in the tray. So the mix happens in the nursery, and then it goes into the field, and yeah, like we could grow all this lettuce in a bed and all this lettuce and have uniform shapes and types, but the mix just kind of sells itself. Show off your cucumber. Yeah, I was in the fishing industry for most of my youth. I worked in fly fishing stores and did a little bit of guiding. But for the last 10 years before we did this, I was a chauffeur. Drove important people around. And it was basically the pandemic that put an end to that. I wanted to get out of that business, and the pandemic pushed the decision. My wife was pregnant with Shane that summer in 2020. And so we took a few months to think about what to do next, and we decided to go try to be farmers. If I had it my way, we would live within walking distance of a trout stream or within 10 minutes of where we want to hunt. You know, southern Arizona or eastern Arizona, but we needed to be near the city because it's where all our support is grandma and grandpa and Grammy and Grampy, and like that really matters with raising kids. And the farm, oh, it's amazing. Like, it's like having my kids on a trout stream every day. Like we're just living with nature and learning everything there is to just learn by like osmosis. You know, they absorb it. I can't believe the stuff that they repeat just because we're hanging out in the cucumbers talking about things. Yeah, I'm pretty happy we're farming. Last year was our first year doing the market, and it really changed the perspective on income. Like it's now a viable business. We're choosing to reinvest because we didn't bring much money to the table to build this farm. And, you know, a $400 tool at the beginning was a big purchase. And now we're able to take most of the market money and keep building on the farm. We want to see more infrastructure and more garden. And it all costs just so much more money than we ever imagined. But really the glue that makes all of this possible is my wife, Paige. She keeps the family well supported, working her butt off. I don't think of a brand new farmer, a first generation farmer, now, yeah, having money to throw at problems would not have been good. I can use money effectively now, I think, but I still am making mistakes. Like, trying to figure out cold water has cost thousands of dollars on stupid decisions. But I don't know, I think I saw, who was it, like probably Curtis Stone. He's the one who said, it's like, your third farm will be the most beautiful farm you ever build. Because you've already made all the mistakes, you've already learned all the lessons, and you just have a better idea for how it should have been. Keep it in scale. Like, that's the biggest thing I can say is, as soon as the scope of what you're doing gets outside of your control, it's all gonna fall apart. Like, I right now can confidently say I can garden 48 beds really well. But if I had 70, would it be just as good? That I haven't found that tipping point yet. Are you going to school? All right. You have a good day. See you, buddy. Thanks for all your help this morning. I love you.
I love you.
Bye.
Bye.
See you guys. One of the biggest unexpecteds was how much I was going to have to learn outside of what I was excited about coming here to learn and do. Like, it's not just learning about how to garden. You need to learn all the carpentry skills to build your infrastructure, the plumbing, electricity, like all that stuff like got forced on me because I couldn't afford to pay people to do it. And it had to be done. And so I guess I'm surprised at how much I've learned even though it was stuff I didn't want to learn. Much would have preferred to hire a man who knows what he's doing to get those jobs done for me, but helps with confidence, all that stuff. But getting started is the hardest part on any of those projects. Once you decide to actually do it and get it in motion, building something is way easier than I expected. I've been surprised at the market. I'm not anymore after doing it for a year. Now I kind of expect it, but there is a really large community of people that have very few ways to get quality food. Getting up as early as they can to get to the market on time to make sure they were able to buy the food that's available once a week there's not many other ways to go find clean food. And to see the participation of people doing it, it's pretty awesome. It really highlights how bad it is outside of these little markets that pop up. We keep a squirt bottle on us at the market to spray, carrots or radishes to help them look fresh, just like a grocery store sprays their produce. And last spring I had a lady demand to see what was in my bottle. I said, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Is that water or are those chemicals you're spraying on your food?" And I just was so stunned that I couldn't believe where she was coming from until that week I saw on Instagram places like Sprouts and Kroger and Safeway, they all put a bleach solution into their misters. And it's so bad that people like that don't trust me. And they do, but they start from a position of no trust. Clean food to me, there's 0 pesticides that we use. We're not organic certified, but we follow all the practices and beyond. When you look at the list of organic approved pesticides, that list is pretty long, and we choose to use none of them. We don't use any herbicides, any insecticides, any fungicides, because to us, like a piece of lettuce is a healthy thing to eat when it's grown in a healthy way. When it's not, it's the opposite of healthy. It's actually, it's toxic. We grow the food for us first, and if it's not clean, I don't want it. So if I'm gonna lose a crop because I've got an infestation, well, so be it. The bugs won that round. But we haven't run into those problems. To me, that's a really encouraging part about the whole thing. We can grow beautiful food that isn't covered in bugs and has never been sprayed with a man-made chemical. This is Ocotillo Farm. We're gonna take you on a tour. We'll start with our chickens. They have about 1 acre from that block wall out to the road, where every 2 weeks they get a new chunk of ground. I guess we call that rotational grazing, but it gives them fresh pasture to be on. I was surprised to learn the term pasture raised is not a term that describes the ground they were on in quality. It describes the space that they're on. And so I think to be a pasture, they have to be on grass. We'll go this way, check out the rest of what we're doing. So planted here, we've got 6 mulberries. There's a Pakistani mulberry, these first 2. This one's an everbearing. These are Sri Lanka mulberries. It's our hope that in a couple years they should connect over the road, and we'll have a nice arched driveway coming in. But before that happens, the amount of fruit that these trees produce is just unreal. From about the middle of April until almost the end of May, as many berries as you could imagine eating for at least a family of 4 off of 1 tree. So we'll be really loaded with berries in a couple years. Right now we're on our driveway, and when you enter the farm, you come through this wall, and you can start to see where we're growing our food. If you look off this way, we've got 3 garden blocks in production now, and this piece of dirty ground here it's slated for the future. These will be next year's new beds. But off of 48, 50-foot beds, we can grow enough food to feed up to 200 people a week. Not their complete diet, but we figure based on the sales volume, about 200 people every week get to eat some of our food. So the garden map is kind of a evolving entity. Every season we're moving where we grew last year's crops. Some of it with purpose, a lot of it just trying to fit things where we can fit things. Standing over here, you can kind of see the evolution of how it went this year. All of our early plantings, some of the spring stuff that makes it through the summer, all of our summer plantings, they're all on the back there where Aaron's harvesting right now. And you can just tell, it's just a jungle back there. Everything grew through the summer. Radishes, beets, turnips, watermelon radishes. And then as we pan across, we can start seeing just the very beginning of our carrots for the season. I think carrots are our most successful crop. We plan to grow 3 times as many as we did last year. At our feet here, this is the stuff that we were planting this week. Even this morning, I was just putting some lettuce in. It's primarily gonna be all of our winter cold crops. So our cauliflowers, our broccolis, under the tunnels over there, our kale and cabbage. We've got the bug netting up to keep the caterpillars off. These are the first kale leaves of the year. We'll actually pick some of these this morning to bring them to the market. So all of our winter crops, the cold ones that I just listed, they're not that valuable. So to really maximize the value of the real estate that they're using, we plant the low value winter crops on the edges, and then down the middle it's considered a value add. We plant an herb or a root, like that bed over there has radishes down the middle. This one has cilantro, and so it just adds to the amount of sellable product that comes off of each bed. The economic lessons we've learned on the farm immediately showed us that every bed needs to generate a minimum amount of dollars per hour of work. Kale by itself won't do it, neither will broccoli. But you add cilantro, and then it all starts to work. Because we definitely want kale and broccoli and cauliflower. It's a huge part of our diet in the winter. But without growing some cilantro down the middle, it wouldn't be that feasible on small scale to grow that stuff. Here we see the first couple successions of lettuce. We were harvesting off of this bed this morning. This bed will be ready to harvest again in another week. What's so great are these cucumbers. We've got 2 varieties growing. This is a pickling variety called Supremo, and they're just supreme. Look how dark green that is. Aaron already picked through here, but I bet I can find a big slicing cucumber. This is a Japanese cucumber called Nokia. And oh, they're just so good. Growing at the feet of our cucumbers, we had a lot of basil this year. In a garden, we call it companion planting. In a farm, it's more considered intercropping. Just like the cilantro going down the middle of the kale. There's beneficial parts about growing basil with the cucumbers, but the main reason we're growing the basil with the cucumbers is to have basil and cucumbers. The concept behind companion planting, I love it. It's beautiful, but it's not totally practical on a farm. Now this is an exception to that. This basil has done such a phenomenal job keeping the beetles off our cucumbers that we're growing the best looking cucumbers we've ever grown. I didn't do it on purpose. My purpose was to have basil, and to see the secondary purpose, which you should almost rank above having basil, is like the quality of these cucumbers are just phenomenal. These 2 rows here are summer squash. You can see they're looking ragged. They're getting towards their end. They're still putting out amazing food. Like that yellow zucchini, man, I don't think that you can find one that looks better than that. And we ate some the other night. I don't think you can find one that tastes better than that either. Running through the feet of the corn, we planted some winter squash. So we had butternut squash and spaghetti squash. And then this bed was our last planting of summer watermelons. We'll let it sit out here for 1 more week to hopefully get watermelons off of it. But essentially, it's time to scrape these 2 and get them ready for more room for our winter crops. It'll primarily be lettuce that we're replacing things with when we take them out. Eggplants. The volume of eggplants that comes off of 50 feet is just amazing. I would bet we've picked 800 pounds of eggplants off of this in a 5-week period. And they'll continue to produce all the way up until it gets cold. If we were in the valley more, these would overwinter. But out here, we're 10 degrees cooler at night than Phoenix. And so these will probably kill, and we plan on them to die. Here's our wall of pole beans. This was an experiment just for us. Our friend and neighbor Dominic, who visited us this morning, he brought these beans to us. He grew up in Portugal, and his family's been farming in Portugal for over 100 years. They've been saving this bean seed since he was a boy. So we grew them this year. He claims they're the best bean in the world. And without hard evidence, I tend to want to believe them because they are phenomenal. This got out of hand. This was one row of San Marzano tomatoes down this row of fence stakes. And then this was one row of bell peppers. And I decided this summer to keep the San Marzanos to give them a chance to do a fall set of fruit. And I did nothing to hold them back. And they've overtaken the peppers. You can't even find the bell peppers anymore. If I don't get tomatoes off of this, I'll chalk this one up to a big mistake. I knew better than to let them get out of control. I should have pruned them, at least kept them within their bounds. But now we're just hoping for a huge bounty. And that's all gonna depend on when it gets cold. If it gets cold early, we won't get any tomatoes off of this. Because they're just now, I can see, they're just now setting their first fruit for the fall. So here's to hoping. This is one of our favorite plants on the farm. You can't give it enough heat in the summer. It just loves our summer heat. It takes almost no water, no amendments. This piece of ground, all I've grown in this for 3 years is artichokes and weeds. And I put these transplants in April, and I gave them nothing besides our usual compost tea. And the production coming off of it's just insane. Like, there's got to be hundreds of pounds of the hibiscus pods out there. Roselle, hibiscus, jamaica, whatever you want to call it. This is a killer plant to grow here in the desert. If you look at this bed here, can kind of give you an idea of how each weekly harvest works and how we plan for how much food we need each week. So this is the last week of harvest on this bed. This bed has sent food to the market 3 weeks in a row, including this week. It was arugula, and then here in the empty spot where my dad's picking at the end was all radishes. So after he's done picking radishes today, we're gonna cover this up with a tarp to kill the arugula. And then in 1 week's time, this bed will be ready to turn into another bed of something else. I'd have to consult the map, but it's probably gonna be lettuce. If I put lettuce on a table, I can sell anything else. If lettuce isn't there, everybody's bummed out. It's not my top revenue just because of the volume that I do with it. I think as far as value goes, it's the most valuable crop on the farm. Lettuce and then carrots. Check out the pond. This is our farm pond. I wish she was full for you today. This pond was the very first thing we did when we moved here. When we bought the farm and decided we want to be market gardeners, our first emphasis was water. So there was 2 criteria when we were looking for properties. One, it needed a reliable water source. We're on a well. It's a beautiful well. It's, as far as Arizona water goes, it's as good as a person could hope for. The other criteria, we needed a house that could house the family. And this property checked both those boxes. And the second week we were here, we rented an excavator and a bobcat. And I've never run either. My brother-in-law said he could run the excavator. And he dug this hole for me. I moved the dirt all around the property, reinforced fence berms, all that stuff. And then within a month, we had installed the liner and we filled it for the first time, and it's never been dry since. We were able to fill it every single week with water from the well. And then it engineers perfectly into the garden. So the little green hut there is my pump house. I've got 2 pumps in there, a solar pump and then a backup electrical pump that we can plug in. It draws water from about 18 inches below the surface, so it gets below the algae line. It doesn't gum up our irrigation. And it gives my gardens access to the best water I could get my hands on. Like, there's 0 chlorine, there's 0 fluoride. It still has the problems that Arizona water has in its salt content. It's high salt and it's very alkaline. So like, we fight our soil pH as well as our water pH, but most of that sorts itself out with compost and compost tea. I think most important is the fact that we don't have chlorine and fluoride in the water that we're growing our vegetables in. And then one step further, the pond is full of fish. There's bluegill and bass and catfish and koi, and they control any kind of insect problems that you might have with a pond. Without testing for the nutrient content in the water, I have to assume it doesn't hurt to have fish pooping in the water you're watering your garden with. I stocked it. I put the bluegill in and the bass, and then Dominic brought me the catfish. The bluegill almost immediately started reproducing. And so there is a robust population of bluegill. That little light spot, I can see at least 100 bluegill sitting right there. The bass eat the bluegill. The bluegill eat bugs mostly. And then there's a forage fish. It's the Gila top minnow, commonly called a mosquito minnow. Anybody who keeps a stock tank or a small pond in this neighborhood has mosquito minnows in there to control the mosquitoes. And the bluegill like eating them too. So immediately, everything started balancing in the pond as far as population levels, and it's just this most self-contained little ecosystem. I've never fed them a thing, and I've never seen a problem with any fish either. Like, the only time we ever see fish die is when a heron or we had an osprey come in and grab a fish. Like, birds come and fish and take them out. That's about it. And the kids love coming out to fish. And it's the perfect dose of fishing for a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old. It's like, we don't have to ride in the car for an hour. We just walk out, catch a couple, look at them in the bucket, throw them back. So I always dreamed about having a pond when I was a kid, and now I got one, so it's pretty cool. The previous owners lived here for 50 years. Everything I've touched, the pond, the gardens, was just a parking lot. Like, they parked trailers and old trucks, and it was like a junkyard. When people that have lived here for a long time see this place, they just can't believe what we did to it. All right, let me show Dad where the other radishes are. And then just be careful not to get dirt in the lettuce when you're picking them.
Okay, I'll look from that side.
Yeah. They look like they sized up perfectly.
Yeah.
So, and their bunches don't need to be as big as the rovers. All right, let's go give the chickens some radish tops. Here you go, ladies. I didn't want chickens. And so I guess I could say I'm really surprised with how much I like chickens. I obviously like eggs, and I like the value that chickens bring, but I didn't want to have to care for animals. And they take care of themselves, basically. You know, it's my job to keep them safe and keep them fed. They're so valuable after that. And they're funny animals. They're fun to watch. My kids love them. So I'm definitely surprised at how much I like chickens. You want to go see the baby chicks? Yeah. Here for the chicks. These are the most recent flock of broiler chickens that we raise. We've got the farm, and then we kind of do some homestead things too. Like, we don't raise meat chickens for the market, but we raise them for us. And we do it 3 times a year. It's just the best tasting chicken we've ever laid our hands on. When we talk about clean food, we know exactly what went into these birds, what didn't go into these birds, and we know the life that they're living. They are 5 days old, and we'll raise them until they're 60 days old, and then that's when we'll turn them into meat. Right now, they're the kids' favorite stage. They're just the fuzzy little fluff balls. They'll spend 2.5, maybe 3 weeks in here, depending on how cold it is 3 weeks from now. And then we'll move them out to the pasture. They go in one of those little tent, we call them chicken tractors, and then they get moved every single day onto a new piece of ground. We are not to the point of hatching our own chicks as far as our chicken journey goes. Plus, this is a hybrid. It's a Cornish, they call it a Cornish cross, It's a Cornish chicken crossed with a Plymouth Rock, and so it's not an easy task to get into chicken breeding like that. So we're very happy to spend a couple bucks per bird to have them delivered. You can't buy the product that we grow, and that, like, even at the farmers markets, like you're buying beautiful chickens, but they were raised on a non-organic feed in a lot of cases, or they were raised in a pasture that doesn't have any grass. And so that became my ultimate, like, what price can I get these birds for? Because if I could go buy this chicken as a finished product ready for my table for $35, I would stop raising these. I raise them for about $17 a bird by the time they're done. And so I've looked at the economics of selling them, and like to sell them, I need to be at about $9 a pound, which some of those chickens will be $55 chickens. And that is the price point for this kind of chicken, but most people are pretty averse to that. So it's a small market. Every time I do it, I am reinforced by the quality of the product that my price is far cheaper than I could ever get my hands on a similar product for, if I could even get it. They're just the best chicken ever.
Hire us to tell your story. As an independent team of filmmakers, we love producing documentaries for artisans of all trades, honoring skill, passion, and determination.
The fruits of our labor literally creates happiness.
Founded in 2020, we harness our collective experience and enthusiasm for storytelling to deliver content that resonates with viewers on every level.
Think big and think outside of the box.
We avoid the constant noise of clickbait news and outrage headlines, instead crafting more intimate narratives that touch on the purpose of life itself. Stories that not only inform but also inspire, whether it's the art of agriculture, the science of fermentation, an innovative garage startup, or the intricacies of off-grid living. We're here to explore it all and invite you to join us in the discovery.
You're just working with what you have at hand instead of having unrealistic expectations.
We know the world is brimming with hidden stories waiting to be told. These are tales of ordinary people doing extraordinary things.
The biggest thing is to realize that there's nothing that you can't do.
Embodying the American spirit that with hard work, dreams really can come true. So whether you're a garage baker, homegrown mycologist, backyard farmer, or off-grid homesteader, send us a message and share your story with the world.